Hey government, this is Miss Corie. Yay, this is the shortest slideshow because I think there's only like one or two vocab words in this one. So let's make this quick, shall we? Because I've been talking a lot lately. So chapter 4, federalism. Let's do this. So what are we going to learn about? So dividing government power. After much debate, the framers designed a federal system that they hope would strengthen the national government and protect states' rights. The Constitution divides powers between two levels of government, national and state governments, and the Constitution delegates certain powers to the national government. Bam! The powers granted to state governments are called reserved powers. Concurrent powers may be exercised by the national and state governments, and states must give full faith and credit to the law of other states. All right, so the main idea today is that the framers of the Constitution established a federal system that divides powers and responsibility between the nation, or the national and state governments. Okay, I'll just keep on going. All right, sweet. Federalism. What is federalism? So we defined it, I think, in the last slideshow. Was that chapter 3? I don't even remember anymore. They just all kind of meld together. So federalism, that is the constitution system of dividing political power between the national government and the states, okay? So dividing the power between the national and the state governments. Okay, awesome. Why federalism? Why is this so important? So American federalism was invented in Philadelphia in 1787, when delegates to the Constitutional Convention met to consider strengthening the national government. Federalism was an obvious choice for these following reasons. The new nation struggled to function as a confederation, so as kind of like a team, in other words. And without power to raise funds, national government was not strong enough to deliver stability or economic unity. Unitary rule, which means all power was held by the strong central authority, was out of the question, because then they were just afraid like a dictator or a king would come back into play. Founders really suspicious of powerful central government, like the British monarchy. Framers sought to forge a republic, so that's where like people vote for representation, and relied on philosophies who advocated self-rule and limited governments. Okay, so a little bit more about federalism. So this really goes into kind of more of the history of federalism. So I'm going to skip this little chunk up here. Let me get my laser pointer up. There we go. So framers really face difficult balancing acts. So the national government needs to address the needs of the nations. They also need to preserve the states' rights, right? So that's kind of hard to balance out. And they also need to ensure a republican government. So the framers devised planned with the authority balanced between nation and state. So they carefully divided power between the two levels of government. So state and national government. So all powers dealing with states' common interest. National defense, control over currency was assigned to the national government, and all other powers would remain with the states. Okay? Let's see here. So the Constitution outlined a federal system that would provide strong national government and protect states' rights. In the U.S. federal system, some powers belong to the national government. Others are reserved to the state, and so others are shared by both. So express power, that is powers granted to national government by the Constitution. So example would be like Article 1, Section 8, express powers of the legislative branch and what it could do. It also expressed powers to two other branches listed in Articles 2 and 3. And honestly, we're not going to get that deep into what the articles are all about. There's also the implied powers. So those are not specifically listed, but logical extensions of express powers. This is called the necessary and proper clause. You might hear this if you ever like follow like court cases and stuff, especially ones between the nations and the states. What it is pretty much it allows Congress the power to build highways, to regulate food, and also mechanisms for collecting taxes. There's also the inherited power, which is historically recognized as naturally belonging to all governments that conduct business of sovereign nations. So the U.S. government has inherited power simply because it is a national government, and their power is not specifically granted by the Constitution. So they're a power to acquire new territory and also conduct foreign affairs. Okay. So with reserve powers, they belong to the states because they are not delegated to the national government, nor prohibited from states. So things include like regulate health, public safety, morals, general welfare of state citizens. So, like example, that would be like the Department of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota. Other reserved state powers would be like the ability to regulate marriage, form local governments, control public school systems, establish and enforce laws. There's also the power to regulate business operating within borders, issue license to doctors, lawyers, barbers, and hairdressers. So those all fall under the state. So again, what powers does the 10th Amendment give to the state? It gives the state those powers that are neither given to the U.S. nor prohibited to the states. All right, so let's see here. Let's skip that. Yep, and then the limits to powers, relations between the states, talks about Native American sovereignty. That's pretty important. So Article 1, Section 8. So the national government has the power to regulate commerce with Indian tribes, use power to make treaties with Native American nations. In most cases, treaties resulted in a lost land, sovereignty, and individual rights for Native people, which I know you probably talked about in U.S. history, if not, if you talked about that in 6th grade too with Minnesota history, because Minnesota had a big play in that. And that Native Americans were actually not granted full United States citizenship until 1924. Wow, that was 100 years ago. So how does full faith and credit clause affect relationships among states? It compels each state to recognize public acts, official records, and judicial processing of other states. Kind of like how your driver's license kind of like, you go to Wisconsin, your driver's license is still valid, or Wisconsin people come to Minnesota and their driver's license is still valid. That's where like states agree on official records, like driver's license. So let's stop here. Wow, that was the shortest video because there was only like one vocab word in there. Look at that, 7 minutes. Sweet. All right, I just flew through like a bunch of slides. If you do have any questions, or maybe you're even more confused, I don't even know. Let me know. I'm glad to help you out. If you do have any questions, though, seriously, do let me know. I'm here to help. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.